Welcome back, and I did tell you that we're continuing the conversation with a focus on the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama. We've spoken about what his tour has given us and some of what he said, but one thing he said that we want to pay attention to is this. If you are honest to Ghanaians, they may not take you seriously. They may take you for granted. And he feels that he was voted out of power because he was too honest to Ghanaians. And he says that is because of his upbringing. But what is the real deal? Is there a cost to being honest to the populace, the voting populace especially? We are going to dissect those issues with our guests. We have a number of them who will join the conversation as and when they can. But for now, for starters, we commence with Professor Alidu Seidu, Head Political Science Department at the University of Ghana. I don't know whether, since you became professor, we've had one encounter, so I've congratulated you already. I was going to congratulate you, Prof, but well, I can still congratulate you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's good to have you. Yes. It's good to have you. So let's talk about fundamentally, even moving away from Ghana, let's generalize it. Is it true that if you're super honest with the electorate, they may not take you seriously, or even worse, punish you because you're telling them of the strictures of the times?
Thank you so much. I think in politics, as a discipline of study, as a discipline of practice or an art, people believe that it is not in all times that you have to be very honest about what is happening, because some people wouldn't like the honesty, or some people want you to pretend that things are well even if they are not well, so that you can win their hearts. But also ardent supporters usually don't want to see their governments being criticized. So even where things are not going well and the leaders pretend that things are going well, it gives them the opportunity to defend. But honestly, when you move beyond that element of propaganda, I think it pays to be very honest with the people, because it is an insult to their intelligence to lie to them. What truth does is to vindicate you over time. When you lie, there are a lot of people who know that you are lying, and they believe that you are belittling their intelligence and you are insulting them, and time will catch up with you. It's a matter of legacy. So what you are telling Ghanaians now, they are people who have been in that position 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, and they know that what you are saying is not true. But there are people who might not have been in that position politically, but have experience and expertise in that particular sector you are talking about, and know that you are lying to them. But there are other discerning Ghanaians who will be able to tell that what you are saying is not true. So it is always good to try to be honest, regardless of the cause, because that's why your administration and posterity will judge you for. Sometimes, whether you are being honest or not, you can pay the consequence. It's not just being honest. There are several other factors that might come in closely when people want to assess your performance and vote for you. And I believe that when you are sincere with them, and people know that you are just being sincere with them for the fact that they need to know, and that also suggests that you respect them and you respect their ability to think as people, then that's where solutions come in. But where you pretend that things are well, and everybody knows that things are not well, it may make some people very angry, and that could lead to your defeat. But over the years, when people remember your regime and your legacy and what you do, this is what they're going to remember about you. So I believe, in actual fact, it is good to be very honest and even pay the consequence, and posterity will judge you, than to lie and win elections, and people will always remember you for it. So listen, for now, one of the examples he gave when he spoke to this issue was about the issue of Dumsor. Now, a lot of Ghanaians are going through this in reality. So whether it is as a result of power shortage, not getting money to buy this, or technical, whatever it is, people don't have lives. So if you tell people that this is not Dumsor and we have lives, or whatever explanation that you give, it doesn't resonate with the reality of the situation. And definitely, discerning voters will definitely punish you. And what we need to realize that the hardcore voters don't care whether you are performing well or not. They support the party and they'll vote for the party. The best they will do is to defect, not participate in the election. But the people who crown leaders in this country are largely the floating voters, and they are judged to be very discerning, very rational, and they consider honesty and sincerity as very important. They are business people, people who own businesses, and people who are in the middle class. If you lie about the macroeconomic situation of the country and it helps them take decisions that doesn't help their businesses, they will never forgive you. And there are people, discerning people like ourselves, who believe that, who know what is going on. And then you tell us that what's going on is not actually what is going on.
Right.
Definitely people will not be happy.
Well, interesting way to start off the conversation. Be honest, but of course, there could be a cost to that, and sometimes the people themselves resist it. But let me also bring in Michael Boedi. He's Corporate Affairs Manager at the Ghana Integrity Initiative. He joins the conversation. Mr. Boedi, a very good morning to you, sir.
Well, good morning, and good morning to your viewers. Let me just say that I am the fundraising manager at Ghana Integrity Initiative. So the portfolio changed along the line from corporate affairs to fundraising manager.
Fundraising manager, right.
Yeah, but that being said, I think that the gentleman who spoke earlier...
Professor Ali Dusseidu. Professor Ali Dusseidu is his name.
Oh, okay. So, Mr. Ali Dusseidu had made very cogent and valid point that the era where deception and then half-truths gets people into power is slowly fading away, if it hadn't faded away completely. The Ghanaians at this point is looking very much for a leader of integrity. Let me say that I think that politicians should do a bit of introspection. They should look at the era before the Fourth Republic. Many hailed the military leader at the time, former President Jerry Rawlings, may the Lord bless his soul, hailed him as a messiah. People believed that there is a lot that he was going to do because he talked about the ills of society and etc. What did we see at the end of his rule? We didn't see that much of integrity and consistency with the promises that he made. Fast forward into the Fourth Republic. Practically every leader that we have had promised heaven. And in the end, they have at least, let me say that they have just reproduced S to us. I heard the former president talk about integrity. When it comes to integrity, practically every leader we've had in this Fourth Republic has some integrity deficit. There is no doubt about that. People had not stuck to their social contract with the people. People had promised that they will fight corruption. They leave power with corruption worsening. They have promised that they were going to do so many things and they had not delivered. So the issue about integrity stares in the face of every leader, and no leader in this Fourth Republic can pretend to be an angel when we are preaching integrity.
But do you feel the former president has a point when he says it cost him to be honest? He tried to be honest and it cost him, and that people prefer being lied to, and that he, from his upbringing, he wasn't taught that way, but it appears that is what the people buy into. If you listen to Professor Ali Dusseidu, he mentioned that while honesty is crucial, in politics sometimes, well, it may not necessarily serve your purpose to be honest, completely honest throughout or on every score. There are some things you may want to, for political reasons, shelve, even if you will deliver the pain later. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that let's look at this. Let's look at the issues very well. Let's look at the issue about the person. If he says that integrity cost him, I don't think so. That, for me, may be an insult to the sensitivity of Ghanaians, because I think that Ghanaians vote on performance. The consistency of your proclamation, with the performance, the delivery of what you promise or what you say you will do or what you did. So it is not much about what you say. It is a lot about what you do after you've said what you've said. And I believe that what cost the ex-president is not what he said necessarily, but I think it is what he did after he said what he has said. So I think that let's not, I think we should not play with words here. Ghanaians are not very happy with the governance of our society. Words and deception will not get anybody the power they so deserve. I also believe that, look, just as the former president says that the current government has not been consistent with and has not been very truthful, I think that the same measure can be put or can be used to measure all the presidency or governments that we've had in this Fourth Republic, including our former president. I wouldn't want to mix words at all. I think that we are going into the 2024 election, and we must not take Ghanaians for a ride. We must be truthful. Ghanaians are now looking anxiously for integrity and for principled leaders. We are not looking for rhetorics. We are not looking for, soothing words and no action.
But you see,
think that
the reactions, if you look at the former president, for example, I have heard, I think, yes, it's Edward Bauer, member of parliament, say that, listen, the way things are going, and I'm sure you've experienced the power outages. Yesterday, I was listening to the managing director of the ECG explaining why some of these things are happening. But we're in the grips of a power crisis, right? Edward Bauer says, regardless of who takes over, whether it's Bawumia or Mahama or whichever person, that person will have to grapple with another power crisis come 2025. But at the same time, you start any talk about that, the former president has said that, I will need some time. I will need some grace period. We've always done that, 100 days. But I'll need some grace period to remedy some things. And people immediately latched on and said, no grace period, nothing of the sort. When you listen to those issues and people's reactions, you begin to ask yourself, is honesty still the best policy, even in politics?
Honesty in politics, in life, in everything is the best thing. You know, people judge people, posterity judges people. It is not so much about just winning the power, but it is about what you do with the power. The reality here is that we are so fixated about winning political power. We plan very little about what we do with the power after we have won the power. And that is why people will make promise, people will deceive, people will use rhetorics and words to win the power. The reality is that I think that it's about time that we must begin to look at collective action. We must have the entirety of Ghanaians sit together, and then let's think about the solution of our country. And then let's prescribe the leaders that will demonstrate the qualities that will be able to provide those solutions. Currently, the promises and the name calling and the lies and the half truths are not bringing us any joy. We have seen it in about how many regimes, 5 or so governments. It hasn't changed our situation in Ghana. I think we must move away. We must begin to rally all the citizenry together so that the truth will not come from the one who wants to be the leader, not to talk about the fact that that person has some interest and therefore will say what they think Ghanaians will buy, but the truth should come from the collective of Ghanaians. The truth should come from academia, the truth should come from the media, the truth should come from the citizenry, the farmer, everybody, the kaya ye, the truck pusher. Our reality must be what we speak to. And when we be able to see truth from the perspective or the eye of the average Ghanaian, then I'm sure we will be able to then hold whoever takes the mantle accountable for that truth. Let whoever comes to power rally the truth from the people, not the truth from his or her perspective.
But that truth, is it not a bitter pill? For example, you talk about there being honest and all of that, but traditionally, it is said that it's not everything that you must speak up about. Is that not a contradiction from our very traditions and how we grow up, how we are brought up? On one end, you may be told honesty is the best policy, but on the other end, hey, kawanutum, and it's not everything you talk about. That is inculcated in you from the very start. So how do you find the nexus between those two? And these leaders, they are picked from us.
Well, I think that plausible deniability is not the same as managing information. You know, you manage information because you give out, communication is also situational. You give out information as at when it is required. That is not the same as denying the reality or the truth. So for instance, you can give an information or you can make a pronouncement that will throw a whole society into anarchy. So in managing that information, it's not the same as lying about the information. You are just being sensitive to the situation, and that is what our upbringing teaches us. So, for instance, I cannot stand in front of a leader or an elder statesman or an elder in society and say, "Sir, you are lying." I can't do that. I mean, even though the person may be peddling
is that in itself not part of the problem? Because in our part of the world, if pardon me, but if an elderly person, and I use my words carefully, is being an idiot, you see, we like to color things. And if you were to tell someone you are being stupid, they say you are insulting them. But it could be that in that moment, the person is acting in a stupid manner, but the person is generally not stupid. Just like maybe the Jesus encounter with Peter, 1 minute, oh, it is my Father who has revealed this to you. And in the next minute, get ye behind me, Satan. Had Peter become Satan? No. But the point is, in that moment, he was not being led by God. I mean, that is a part of the problem, isn't it?
Well, using the same analogy, you realize that Jesus did not refer to Peter as Satan. Jesus was using the get thee behind me, Satan, in a context. You see, he said that what you are saying has not been revealed to you by flesh and blood. What Jesus was then talking about was a spiritual context, and therefore, when he talks about Satan, he's talking about a spiritual context that is being demonstrated by Peter. Please, culturally, and our society does not allow certain things to be said. So let us not import some culture, or you can't stand in front of an elder person and say you're being idiot or you are being stupid. No, perhaps you probably could say I would have acted differently. That is not to say that you are covering the truth. You see, being truthful is not the same as being insulting. And you know,
and I get that point. Let me clarify. I completely get that point. I completely get that point. I was only citing it as an example. Of course, wherever you may go, you wouldn't want, whether in Parliament or anywhere. That's why even in Parliament, they have decorous practices. You can't refer to another honorable member as such. But I'm just saying that in our context, outside of whatever, if you try to speak the truth to an elderly person, be it a parent or an elderly figure, you are shut down. We start right from the very beginning telling people you can't say this. And we have those sayings. It's almost like penny enye bibia eye bone. No matter what they've done, you must celebrate them. Once you do that, we'll have leaders like this.
No, I beg to differ. So the same elders who will say that penny enye bibia bone, the same elders will also tell you that abofra ehuninsa obra onim penny didi. And so therefore, when you know how to speak properly, you will able to share table with the elders. That is to say that when you don't go and stand in front of an elder and insult the elder, but you could also, because you see, our society has their own checks and balances. They have their own way of presenting the truth. We have abandoned that and we are imbibing certain things from certain cultures and we are not prepared for it. So you don't, look, you can say the truth and get a slap and then say the truth and get an applause. That is what our society. So our society says, speak the truth, but speak it in a decorous way that you can get action out of the truth. Let me give you a typical example. I want former President Mahama to do something. I go to him and say, you are a non-performing person, and therefore, if you want to prove to me that you are performing, do this for me. You will not get what that results that you so desire. But if you go to him and say, society is clamoring for ABCD to be done for us, and I think that if you do ABCD, it would put a feather in your cap. So would you please help us or do it for us? I'm sure the response from the second analogy will be more positive. What I am trying to say is that what we perceive as truth sometimes could be disrespectful, sometimes it would be uncultural, sometimes it could be an expression of arrogance. The truth is not the same as insult. The truth is not the same as being rude. The truth in our context is saying the bare fact but decorously.
Let me let you take leave of us with these two questions. I want to pick your thoughts. One, how do you feel, especially from where you sit, Ghana Integrity Initiative, how do you feel we can extract honesty? Extract. I'm carefully using that word because it appears if you left our leaders, they would not deliberately be honest. How do we extract it from our leaders? And two, if you had to assess this administration, it's almost 8 years. We've been told a lot. From where you sit, Mr. Bwedi, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest do you feel this administration has been with Ghanaians? Over to you.
Very well. So how do we extract the truth? And let me say that the best way to extract the truth from governance perspective is what I alluded to earlier, collective action. Let the truth come from the people. I am praying that academia, I am praying that the media, I am praying that civil society organizations will begin to rally people together so that we can mobilize, we can collate the truth. Then we can prioritize what we believe that the incoming government or governments yet to come should do and at what time we should do it. And then we set indicators to measure those performances. I believe that will be the truth that Ghanaians are looking for going forward. In terms of measurement, the government still has some time to go. I have not done any scientific study to be able to say authoritatively that the government is being
let me give you a good idea. Let me just...
The government has not delivered on everything that he promised, and when it comes to the fight against corruption, the TPI has already given us a measure. We have remained static. We are not making any progress. In the last 4 years, we haven't seen any significant progress in our fight against corruption. So from where I sit as Ghana Integrity Initiative, we think that the government needs to do more. In terms of performance in the fight against corruption, he has remained static.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bwedi, for joining the conversation. Interesting thoughts there from Michael. Bwedi, the fundraising manager at the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Professor Seidu, my apologies, but we had to clear some issues with Mr. Bwedi, who has something else to knock off to. I'm sure you may have some responses or thoughts on some of what he's shared. He moved away, he shied away from giving an assessment. He says we can go to some of the indices and look at them. But if you look, for example, at the flagship programs, 1D, 1F, One Village, One Dam, Free SHS, One District, One Factory, 1 million per constituency. Among the tall list of these, it didn't take a soothsayer, someone to look into a crystal ball, to decipher, even with our heavy borrowing, that these would have been difficult. But we are seeing some of these coming up again in an electoral year. How do we extract honesty from our leaders on some of the things they are telling us? And maybe to start off, how do you feel about this administration? How honest, from where you sit, have they been with us? You would have to unmute,
so
Paul.
I think,
okay, all right. I can hear you now.
We need to. I think to understand that we are human beings. Human being cannot be 100% perfect. We have our shortfalls. We have our weaknesses. So, as part of the governance process, when you say you are going to do something, for example, free senior high policy, it's a remarkable policy. But as human institution and as conditions and other variables may change, you may not get the desired results as initially anticipated. When people detect challenges with policy, just as every other policy, it is of significant importance to accept that, yes, we have made like 90% progress or 80% progress, but we are facing challenges on this 10 or 10% of the implementation. And that is basically what we're going to seek to address. So I remember recently, there was this Joy documentary, I think it's not even been aired, Empty Place, the Free Senior High Promise. When this teaser was released, I can't remember the designation of that particular person from the Ministry of Education. They went around the country and they said there's no problem and everything is fine. It's a media collusion against government. It would have been very straightforward for him to admit that, yes, we have done enough, but like every policy that we implement, there are challenges. And that's why there is policy evaluation and policy analysis to look at some of these challenges and to find ways to address it. When the next day Joy FM in the Super Morning Show open phone lines for parents who have their wards in secondary school to comment on this issue, people were very angry because they have kids at school who are facing this reality. So it's not a bad thing to admit that, yes, this policy have problems. And basically what we need to do moving forward is to be able to identify challenges and resources to address them. It's the same for the One District, One Policy. It's the same for every other policy that we implement. And it's not just in the NPP government. Throughout history, policies have always faced challenges and setbacks because sometimes at the time you were formulating or thinking about that policy, there were a lot of factors that were right. But maybe moving towards implementation, the economic situation of the country may change. There may be global economic downturn. There may be other factors that will vary the anticipated planning for that particular policy. So it is part of honesty to admit that, yes, this is what we have done. These are the challenges. And this is how we intend to address those challenges. And Ghanaians can identify with you and be able to support you. But when you come out clearly and you deny it, it makes them look so stupid, especially people who have wars in schools or people who are direct beneficiaries of those particular policies. So I think in terms of the policies that you have mentioned, there are challenges with most of them. But that doesn't mean that the policies are not achieving the intended results. What we need to do as part of the evaluation process is to identify the gaps and be honest with Ghanaians that, yes, these are the gaps. And moving forward, we need your collective support to be able to get those issues addressed. And one thing we have to realize is that there's a whole concept of political culture and political socialization. If you're a parent at home and you have the habit of lying to your kids or your children about maybe even your financial situation or very important issues at home, the children, you may think they are just children, but sometimes they are able to tell that what dad or mom is saying is not true. But not just that, not just the realization, they may grow up to think that it is appropriate to lie in in whatever you say. And they grow up with that particular political culture. So most of the dishonesty we have in the political system across the country is largely because people look up to duty bearers and see that duty bearers have not been sincerely or entirely honest with them. And they also think that, fine, if they think this is the way to govern, they will also go to play smart. And then we end up destroying the whole country. But where people, even in developed world that they have resources more than we do, and they have everything at their disposal, there are still policy challenges that they face. And politicians, in most cases, are always, to some extent, very honest with the people. And when you be honest with them, that's when you get the political buy-in and the support that you need to be able to surmount those challenges. Whichever way we look at it, look, whether you are being honest or not, you can never stay in power forever. And like my senior colleague said earlier, what people will judge your administration, or what posterity will judge your administration, is to the extent to which we're very sincere and honest with them. And that will forever remain your legacy. We teach politics in Ghana. We start from pre-independence to independence, and we assess every government. Whatever you do now, later years, children of this republic will study you and be able to say a lot of things, good or bad, about your administration. People will write it in books, people will write it to be documented in journal articles, and posterity will forever judge you and what you have done. So whichever way we look at it, there are consequences. But it is good to be very honest and face the consequence than to be very dishonest.
It's better to be honest. Honesty is the best policy. But just looking at it generally, briefly, generally, are we being honest with this conversation itself? Because the dishonesty, it seeps down to maybe the children who are mingling among us today. How do we deal with those systemic issues? I know that is the broader conversation, but even as we accuse technocrats and politicians, how about us? They say when you point at someone with a finger, the rest point at you. How about the rest of us in society? The corruption will not be enabled if the rest of some of the people in our society were not also collaborators in corruption. How do you feel about that?
I think there's this Michael Jackson song. I don't know the title, but it talks about the fact that if you want to make a change, look at yourself in the mirror and make a change.
Yeah,
so
I think man in the mirror.
Fantastic. I think it starts with all of us. At least there have been a lot of instances that most of us have been economical with the truth. Simple because we feel that people will judge us, or people will think we are not performing as leaders, or something, just to cover your administration and make it look good, or just to cover your personal shortcomings and make yourself look good. So in actual fact, if you all realize that the truth will ever set you free, and speak the truth, regardless of the consequence, is going to help you. Even if you look, when you lie, there's a consequence. Maybe you may benefit short term, but moving forward, you have to continuously lie to defend the first lie that you told. So I think that it has to start with each one of us who are demanding this accountability of our leaders, who are denying this honesty from our leaders, to start practically in our lives, to try to be honest. Because over the years, maybe our leaders realize that this is what they want. So even if you are not doing it, just say you are doing it, and then they will believe you, because maybe they are also like that. But when we begin to make to shine in our little corners that we occupy, and we make sure that we look at the whichever way we look at it, there will be consequence. But it's always good to be on the right path. Then that is going to generate that kind of snowball to the national level. So when you are being honest at where you work, and the person who is coming to deal with you also strive to be honest, and then we all know that when you are dishonest, you face the consequence, or it pays to be honest, but it takes nothing from you to be honest, and that pays well than to be dishonest. When we started from our own personal levels, then and begin to, like my senior colleague said, collective action. So every collective action starts from the individual level. So right. At the individual level, honestly speaking, we all have to examine ourselves, and we have all contributed in a way towards this national level dishonesty in our politics. Right. It has to start one of us to be able to set the record straight and do things right.
Do you have any final comments as we conclude on this conversation, Prof?
I think in politics, particularly, there are times that politicians may be very economical with the truth, and that may pay. But to take it as a hobby throughout life is going to be a disaster. Even in the developed world, like I think he talked about the fact that plausible denial is not what is it mismanaging information. There are certain events or certain issues that at the right moment, when you say what is right, could cause a lot of anarchy. So you can manage the communication there, and then later on you'll be honest with the people. But to take it as a norm and to live your political life that way, definitely posterity will not judge you right.
Thank you very much, Professor Halidu Seidu. Thank you very much for joining the conversation. We had Professor Halidu Seidu. He is head of Department of the Political Science Department at the University of Ghana. We also had Michael Boadi, and he is, well, he says he's not corporate affairs manager anymore. He's fundraising manager with the Ghana Integrity Initiative. This is a conversation that we're going to have many times in the course of this year, because our politicians, misleaders as I call them, cannot keep taking us for granted. But it also depends on what we do with what they say. And if we crystallize on that, I guess at some point they will shy away from doing some of these things. Thank you for staying for this end of the conversation. We still have a lot more coming your way on the AM show. Stay for that.